All right. It looks like we have Evan on the Zeus wallet account here. Justifer is not going to make it today because he is the lucky one in El Salvador there. So I want to go ahead and welcome everyone, excuse me, to this week's Latin Friday event. We haven't had this for quite a while, and so we have a quite a bit of news to get caught up on here. So I want to go ahead and introduce Evan Kaludis. He's the main dude over at Zeus Wallet.
Hey. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, you sound pretty good.
Nice. How are you doing today, Chaz?
I'm doing okay. I think Kat might have some inside knowledge about how I'm actually doing, but we'll just say I'm doing good and just keep things moving. How about
that? Okay. No worries, Chaz. Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. Lots been going on. Where do we even start today?
Well, let's go ahead and start with some numbers. So, you know, a lot of other shows do something similar where maybe they say the block height and all that stuff. But on here, we kind of, you know, we focus on the Lightning Network here. So it looks like we have 3,251 Bitcoin on the public-facing side of the Lightning Network, according to amboss.space, Justifer's little project there. And so, like, I think the last time I looked at this, it was way high, or I'm sorry, way lower, like 1,000 Bitcoin lower. Am I crazy right now?
No, I mean, we've still been like growing at a pretty crazy rate, but has it been that much? Because I'm seeing total capacity of 3,200 or so. Wow, I mean, we're growing at a clip, and I've got a different dashboard up. I got my buddy Clark Moody's dashboard up, and is this right? There's more Bitcoin up on Tor than on PlaneNet. That's pretty amazing, but I guess that makes sense if we're getting so many more nodes on the network, especially from something like Umbrel and the likes of those just home node projects. But yeah, that's pretty cool to see.
Right, like I haven't even really been looking since we haven't been doing these, so it's like the number just jumped up a ton in the interim while we were off doing whatever. But I think the big news item right now would probably be the new release of LND and their reoccurring AMP invoices. I honestly haven't had a real chance to dig in on this, but just the kind of broad implication of it is pretty interesting. What do you think, Evan?
Yeah, so that's really the big issue with Lightning as far as typically when people have been sending Bitcoin in the past using on-chain addresses, you've been able to reuse them. People have been able to post a single Bitcoin address on their website and be able to keep using it for donations or whatever they see fit. I mean, there's privacy implications, but at least people have the option to do so. With Lightning having these sort of ephemeral one-time invoice requests, we sort of have this problem. Like, how do we tackle the issue of recurring payments and subscriptions? And we're sort of seeing a couple of different ideas play out in the space now. So we got Bolt 12, which is sort of this protocol for like negotiating and getting subscription services. And we also got these new AMP type invoices that's being worked on from the Lightning Labs guys. So it's two similar but distinctly different approaches, and I guess we're gonna have to see them slug it out in the marketplace of ideas here as far as Lightning.
I wouldn't forget about LNURL, by the way.
Oh, of course not. I think that in some ways, at least as far as adoption goes, I think LNURL's got the lead on both of them.
Right.
Especially just seeing all the wallets and services sort of, integrated. For the most part, I think everyone has the bulk of the LNURL stack, and a lot of wallets have Lightning address now implemented in them. And that's been really exciting to see. I think just there's like a few outliers, like maybe Moon doesn't support it, maybe Strike. Other than that, like all the other big parts of the open source ecosystem have sort of embraced that whole stack at the open arms, including BTC Pay Server, who's now got Lightning addresses. And I've been using their implementation for Lightning addresses for Zeus. So we got a new tips address for the project and for myself personally. And, it's just a really easy user interface and experience. And it's been really cool. And I think they've got a bit of a leg up in one way, in that your addresses are human readable. They look like an email address, right? And you could just rattle them off to someone. But the downside is you need a web server to be able to do the work in the back end and fetch like actual normal Bolt 11 addresses for you to pay to. Whereas, these AMP addresses and these Bolt 12 addresses or invoices rather, just looks like a garbled string, just like a invoice you're accustomed to already right now on Lightning Bolt 11.
Yeah, well, one thing that I want to comment on the BTC Pay server side of things, just because I like complaining sometimes, is the way they have it set up. I wish there was a way to specify a separate subdomain, or just use the regular domain, whereas my actual way that I access my BTC Pay server might be on a subdomain, if that makes sense. So I just think Chaz at the way that I access my subdomain at lightningjunkies.net or .lightningjunkies.net sounds a lot worse than Chaz at lightningjunkies.net, just that by itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty minor, though.
And that's definitely a bit of a challenge, and I'm sure there'll be some interesting workarounds to get a little more specific with that. But, the BTC Pay Server team, they're, second to none, and I'm sure they'll be messing around with some interesting solutions to make that a smoother experience. But what I've wanted to see is I wanted to see some distinction, perhaps, between the different accounts you can make on there. So perhaps I could track what donations I might get personally versus what's going to the Zeus project. That would be really cool. I don't think there's a reason why that shouldn't be possible to at least distinguish, at least with an invoice label. So I don't know. We'll see. This stuff is like really just cutting edge. Andre really just came out with the proposal for Lightning address just like a couple months ago, and it like really just spread like brush fire. We are in a really awesome situation as far as development goes, because Lightning on the second layer, and above that on Lightning address, like a third layer, just lets us move quickly and break things and experiment. So I'm sure there's going to be lots more innovation, and people will be building to make even better user experiences on Lightning. So that's really exciting. And at least from what I've seen that people are whipping up, like 2022 is going to be awesome, and there's going to be so much more to play with.
So one thing that I'm reading here on the announcement post for AMP Invoice is that it sounds like they're going to try to be more interoperable with offers and LNURL and any other side project that might be out there. Like I will have to confess that I barely can read some of this stuff here and actually make sense of it. But it vaguely gives me the impression that it's going to be easier for offers and AMP invoices to interoperate in some way. Like I feel like that's the way to approach things. I think the way that Rusty is doing offers in Bolt 12 is kind of similar. Again, I am not 100% familiar with all the details, but it seems to be the correct way to approach things, because it seems like C Lightning and L&D aren't going to become best friends and create the exact same, product and go through the exact same path. And maybe that's a good thing. So we can have multiple paths and have different ways of doing things. So if one fails, we have a different path to take, and, Lightning can proceed as normal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on one hand, we want to see the experimentation, see people go their different ways and try things. But, on the other side, we will also want to see some people try to come to some sort of consensus and be willing to, try to find that middle ground on a solution that works for everyone, and, be willing to, have some acceptance of other ideas. So yeah, I mean, as far as LN URL or LN addresses go, there's no reason why that spec can't fetch either Bolt 12 or these new AMP addresses. So at the very least, we'll have interoperability on that level. But I think there's still a lot of things being hashed out as far as what these subscriptions are going to look like. I mean, even if you were to use Bolt 12 today, which is working pretty well to a certain extent, there's some limitations in there. Like your client needs to keep track of all the invoices, and your subscriptions, really, and it's not really just done by C-lining by default. So, I think there was talk of having like a data store for them to potentially put all that stuff in, but there's stuff that's being left to the application developers to figure out right now, and it's not really ideal, especially if you're having users that are using multiple different applications. Like, let's say I have a C Lightning node, and when I'm home, I like to get the full display on my big monitor, and I use something like RTL. And then, when I'm out and about, I like to connect my C Lightning node via Zeus, and be able to make those payments in person and really take advantage of the quickness of payments that Lightning affords us. So, there's going to be a lot of development on these two sort of competing protocols in the next year, and it's going to be really interesting to see where everything lands. But things are promising, and this kind of behavior, especially as far as subscriptions go, is really just enabling the creator economy. We've really seen the emergence of it over the last couple of years with Patreon and stuff like OnlyFans. This stuff is ripe for Lightning to go in and sort of co-opt and ultimately provide better rates to the creators, get rid of the middlemen. So this is probably one of the more exciting domains that Lightning is trying to address. So,
yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that for sure. Just a quick reminder for everyone, though, if you have any questions or anything you'd like to add to the conversation, please don't hesitate to request speaker privileges or to ask a question, even if you're on YouTube. I will see your question and we will answer it live on the air. But yeah, to kind of address your question or to your statements there, yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, that's why we had a episode of Lightning Friday with Rusty and Stefan, just talking about how recurring payments on Lightning, in that case, Bolt 12 and offers, could seriously help content creators. I think we're actually kind of far out, not from helping content creators generally, because I think that's happening today with me being like an easy example, and there being many, many other examples. Maybe you could point at podcastindex.org as like a giant list of examples of people, podcasts that have this value for value, or this new way of doing podcasting kind of installed. So yeah, I feel like we're going to get more and more of this. And it's going to become the standard at some point. These centralized platforms, your Patreons, your OnlyFans, aren't long for this world, I don't think.
No, I mean, people. Well, listen, there's definitely a time as we go into this transition period We got to iron out our specs. We got to, expand our user base. But, I think what these centralized platforms have more is just like they have their installed bases and they have their network effects. And those are going to be hard to shake. But, tech like this disrupts everything. And it's going to be, it'd be really shocking if we go into the next decade with these platforms like still intact with the same mechanics as far as payments go. So it's gonna get really really rocky there for them. So we'll see.
I imagine
all these platforms, they might have a couple of years runway for sure, most certainly, but beyond that, they really need to start embracing some of this tech and figuring out what that middle ground is going to be like. Or at least changing their business models. Who knows?
Right. I guess on my end, I imagine it being kind of split between, not to be mean to grandma here, but split between grandma and like the kids in the early 20s can pick up technology super duper fast and, see the advantages and things before the older folks, let's say. And so that's what I see, like all the people that are on Patreon right now, all the kids that are on OnlyFans, et cetera, they're taking advantage of what's relatively bleeding edge technology, not literally compared to Bitcoin and Lightning, but these platforms didn't really exist 15 years ago. There wasn't a way to kind of sell your content in this way a while ago. So like the kids that are, maybe 10 now, let's say, by the time they're 18, a lot of this stuff is just going to be second nature. We might have to compete with a lot of the shitcoinery type stuff of the world, but I think that direction with Bitcoin Lightning being one of the more powerful tools in the actual decentralized payment stack is going to make it a very attractive platform to use for these content creators. I just see our main challenge being fighting the marketing of these shitcoins that have like a stupid amount of easy free money to use. So
that's definitely a big hurdle to go against. I mean, all these coins, they have their pre-mines and they're able to allocate, dedicated budgets just for marketing. And that's why you see like coins like Dash being able to like buy ad space on airplanes and get unsuspecting people looped in who might not know better or really understand the nuances or what something brings to the table or rather doesn't. So yeah, that's definitely a point of concern. But I think my bigger points of concern are, usability and making things like really easy to use for people while still maintaining a great level of decentralization on the network. And that's really my bigger concern because, I mean, we're all really Lightning enthusiasts here, but I think we could pretty clearly identify what the pain points in using this cutting edge stuff is. I mean, Chaz, weren't you just talking the other week about, having channels closed on you and the pain of managing your Lightning node?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's with the complexity of so many moving parts in the system. I honestly think it's something to do with the kind of unique way that I have my BTC Pay server set up. I still have it set up with the no seed. And I'm willing to bet I am one of the few people that have tens of thousands of dollars worth of Bitcoin on a no seed machine or like a no seed setup. So I'm willing to bet like I'm on like their shit list of we're not going to support these like edge cases of people that don't back up their seed or whatever. So I'm thinking that I'm running into edge cases there for that reason. But it's still because like there's this massive complexity and it's very easy to fall into these issues and not be able to figure it out. Even if you're, moderately technical like I am, I can, figure things out if you give me a long enough time. But I did want to bring up one example that you were kind of saying, like, shitcoins might have advertising revenue, but I would point out the giant elephant in the room in this case. Crypto.com just spent $700 million to get the what the fuck is that thing called? The Staples Arena. Someone correct me on that.
Staples Center.
Yeah, the Staples Center. So obviously the Lightning Network and associated technologies, we don't have a lot of funding. We don't have a lot of that easy money floating around, and to just dump $700 million on a sports stadium is, that's completely totally outside what Lightning Labs, for example, could pull in a million years. Like that's not in their strategy, and will probably never be in their strategy. So I definitely agree with you that one of the more important things to look at is keeping this decentralized, keeping it from turning into the hub and spoke model that a lot of the fudsters would point out is happening or gonna happen or whatever. But how do we actually compete with the flashy bullshit? I feel like it's very difficult because big numbers will attract the people that just don't know what they don't know. Like, oh, this is very big. It's very shiny. It has millions of dollars going on. So it has to be real. It has to be the better thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's first of all, it's like you're at a disadvantage because centralized services, despite having their rehypothecation risks, their censorship risks, their surveillance risks, they could provide smoother user experiences, just by virtue of having, everything go through this giant hub, this giant node that might be super well connected, that could be a super node on the network. So that's challenge number one. Yeah, I mean, just people also just being used to the traditional portals of getting their content, or getting their apps, and just used to these relationships. Really, like, people don't really see the value, I would say, in being self-sovereign or the value of decentralization until it's really needed. So it's like also an education issue. Like, how do you convey to people some of these risks? How do you convey the importance of decentralization, of self-sovereignty? And ultimately that message is not going to spread to everyone. But how do you build tools that help facilitate growth in our community that don't necessarily encourage these centralization points to grow? So it's a big challenge, but I'm really optimistic based on some of the efforts I'm seeing. I think in 2022, some of these efforts are really going to shine, and I think ultimately it comes down to giving people granular permissions to access your node and perform certain operations or lookups of data on it, very granularly, very limited, just for what they need to do. I guess the analogy I've been telling people is like, similar to how, like, when Web 2.0 came out and you had your Facebook profiles, maybe you were a music fan and use Last.fm to scrabble your music library. You had the ability to plug into third-party applications, and you could say, I'm on Facebook, let me give access to Farmville to see my profile, to create an account for me on their new system, to see my email, but don't give them access to their REST account. Or for Last.fm, let them have access to my latest Scrabbles, but don't give them, my email or personal information, or, maybe nothing beyond a unique identifier. In a similar way, we need tooling that lets us have third-party providers be able to leverage connections to our nodes, but without the risk of, them taking all your funds and running with them, or B, maybe the ability to even obfuscate what you might have in your wallet, or only give them access to, the part of it they need to see. And yeah, I'm pretty encouraged from what I hear from some of the stuff L&D's doing as they're making their macaroons more granular, and what sounds like they're looking to have more ways to connect your node to other people. But also services like Greenlight that the folks at Blockstream, the guys working on C Lightning, are building, where perhaps your node can be hosted in their cloud, just to have that high connectivity, but in a way that you're the only one with the seed. Sort of similar to like what Graham and co are doing with Voltage. Like they could host your node, but you're the only one who has the seed. But imagine if you could take that to the next level and say, let these people manage the channel liquidity. I'll say they could move up to 10 million sats a month, open up to 20 different channels, and do 5 different loop in or out operations as well. And being able to revoke those permissions whenever you see fit or whenever you're not satisfied with the service, because it's really awesome to have self-sovereignty and have all the flexibility of running your own Lightning node. But these businesses and services, a lot of them are not going to be interested in dealing with the channel management and liquidity pain points. So if you could give them assurances that their funds are safe, whoever's helping manage all this stuff is not getting access to the full funds, that you have some assurances built in at a cryptographic level, then things really get to start to be interesting. And you also create better experiences for users, and you also facilitate the creation of brand new Lightning services and businesses. And that's what I really see blowing up in the next 2 years, enabling this network to grow in even more ways, and helping address some of those pain points that we're seeing both from the user and merchant or enterprise perspective, right? Because like there's countless people and businesses that want to get on Lightning. They want to be able to accept sats, but they don't want to worry about the channels. They don't want to worry about their channels going down, or their connectivity running in their house or whatnot. And they're more than willing to just say, okay, screw it. I'm just going to do Wallet of Satoshi, which is a completely centralized service. I'm going to sacrifice my privacy, the rehypothecation risks, etc., just so it works. What if we can give them the same assurances, instead of the fees going towards a centralized service, and in the form of a giant hub, you can be giving it to someone to help manage your node, but at the end of the day, your funds are ultimately still controlled by you. So that would be really sweet, and it's coming. So watch out.
So where my mind goes is, I think, kind of the obvious place where a lot of these things are getting tested in the real world, and I think that's El Salvador. If we've been seeing, like on Bitcoin Twitter, we've been seeing a lot of these stories about how kind of Chivo wallet sucks and has a kind of very suboptimal user experience, and kind of makes Bitcoin and Lightning look bad for just kind of how shitty it is, and how it just like payments are just not appearing, and you call customer service and they're like, I don't know. Yeah, like we can't, that kind of just makes things look a lot worse at these kind of more mom and pop businesses that may not be as savvy to go contact open node like the Starbuckses and McDonald's of the world.
Yeah, that's so frustrating. It's like on one hand, I'm really excited for El Salvador, but I'm also feel bad for a lot of the businesses that are ending up acting as our QA testbed. and a lot of pain points, especially with that Chivo video that some people may have seen. I think it was like a French blogger who was hanging out with Roy from Breeze. Shouts out to Roy. Breeze is a great product. And they made a payment from Breeze. They saw the sat send. They got a pre-image. Chivo didn't recognize it. And the guy's like posting a whole thread of videos of the experience. Ultimately, what ended up happening is they paid cash. They paid in dollars. And the merchant ended up calling Chivo and ended up reading the like 25 plus character pre-image over the phone. And it's like, gosh, like we're trying to make better user experiences for people, and that sounds like hell. So we knew everything wouldn't be just like working seamlessly, but that was just a really bad example. And it's a great example to show that people, as much as like it's great that El Salvador is trying this new thing, like you should not be using their wallet, and we really need to have boots on the ground doing like a better job trying to onboard businesses and users onto different wallets. And that's by and large another education issue. Like there's so many quite good wallets out there that are, for the most part, you're at least holding your own keys and offering comparable, if not better, experiences. And most businesses just know, okay, I got my $30 equivalent or whatever airdrop through Chivo. I'm going to keep using it. But at the same time, a lot of those businesses, they're also not looking to hold the Satoshis. Like they just want to flip them out and get their US dollars so that they can pay their bills. So yeah, a lot of user experience pains there.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I guess it's very good that we're kind of seeing these issues happen, but my imagination here is kind of reminding me of a different scenario that was very much like this, and it was in the 90s when the internet was new. Like when people heard the word internet, they thought that meant AOL. They thought that meant a prescribed like user experience with very curated everything. And a large segment of people that just didn't know better thought this is the internet, this is as good as it gets. There's no control, you can't put up your own content, etc. Maybe you can go to the AOL town hall or whatever, town hall 12, and spam or whatever people did back in the 90s. But obviously that wasn't the quote unquote real internet. That was obviously a completely suboptimal experience that another company profited from. And it seems to be pretty similar in this case. Like, some people might say it's silly to call like Bitcoin the internet of money, like Andreas used to say, but I still think that's a valid way to think about it, that it's still this layer, and it's very easy to try to be a corporate entity on top, misleading people and saying, oh God, we're Bitcoin, we're Lightning, don't worry about that other real thing, use Chivo, we're going to help you, whatever. I basically see it as the AOL, and the people in El Salvador need to stop using AOL if they can help it.
Yeah, absolutely. At least AOL was compatible with the real internet. So the whole while, minus the chat rooms, like they're getting access. They're getting a taste of what this open platform is, capable of. It just stinks when there's issues and seeming incompatibilities with other wallets. And, ultimately that's going to get better over time. But, there's definitely a lot of pain to be had before everyone breaks out. So we just got to keep doing our part and trying to educate people and, trying to steer people the right direction. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, there's always going to be some centralized choke points, people who don't know better, some services that could be provided with a little bit more ease or at cheaper cost. And what we can do is continue to build and promote alternatives that are focused around user freedom, and at a higher level, at a protocol level, just try to make design decisions that discourage centralization. And that's a huge challenge.
So let me ask you a hyperbolic question here.
All right, let's do hyperboles.
Is the Bitcoin legal tender thing in El Salvador a complete failure as of right now?
I wouldn't say it's a complete failure, but I would also not say it's a success, really. I think there are hints of it. I think there are success stories in El Salvador. And I would say that a lot of people's lives are being enriched by the ability to use Bitcoin down there. But I would say most of that is because of grassroots efforts, stuff like Bitcoin Beach, education, setting up that Hope House and all the stuff Strike's done down there. But most of that wasn't a result of the state's laws. So, what Bukele is doing down there is quite cool to see, but I'd say most of this adoption is not a result of his actions. It's more so a result of this grassroots community being fostered down there. And, people are just really needing it. So, I don't want to dismiss it as a failure, but obviously there's a lot of work to do down there. And, we definitely need to see a lot of improvement as far as both the state wall Archivo goes, as far as education efforts go. We need a lot more Spanish language content. It feels like there's a lot of incredible English language content on the web for Bitcoin, but some of the Spanish stuff is a little lacking. So tip my hat to all the Spanish educators out there trying to bridge that gap. And there's still a whole lot of work to do as far as user experience goes. And, we've made some awesome strides with Lightning in the last 3 years, but we're really just getting started. And there's a lot of pain points that have really just been identified, I would say, largely, and or people are just starting to sink their teeth into tackling.
So kind of bringing that up here and kind of slightly moving away from El Salvador. So, God, I totally forgot his name all of a sudden, but the guy that created Bull Bitcoin.
Francis?
Yeah, exactly. Francis.
No, he's great.
Right. So he posted recently, I don't think he's posted the actual article yet, but the Bull Bitcoin company added Lightning at some point, and he's alluding to the fact that the experience has been kind of bad for him, like as a company. So I find it very curious because I think no one would dispute that Francis is a very Bitcoin focused person. So the fact that he's kind of shit talking Lightning here, like, it makes me want to get him on the podcast or get him on Lightning Friday, because I feel like that type of information is the information that needs to be out there more. Like, I'm sure you remember how many episodes I had of Lightning sucks on Lightning Junkies, just because,
Hey, listen, we need to be our own critics, because Bitcoin critics in general are complete fools, right? So, if we can't be critical, then we're not going to hear what we need to hear. I'm sure Francis has a lot of insight. If I were to guess what his issues are, mind you, I'm based in the States. I haven't been able to use full Bitcoin at all. But my bet would be pains with managing the liquidity. I would say there's probably a lot of issues from users who are submitting support tickets and saying, I'm trying to withdraw or deposit to the exchange, and I'm unable to find routes. I'd say that's an issue. I would ask if there's any limits on the size of these deposits or withdrawals, because obviously with the way stuff is routed, smaller the better, really. And a lot of exchanges are going to go with a strategy of limiting the size of the Lightning transactions and forcing larger transactions off onto the blockchain with on-chain payments. So I'd be curious to hear about that. Be curious to see what features he has enabled on his node, if he's connected on Tor or just ClearNet or vice versa. How he is, or if he's got multi-path payments on. I'm sure he does, because it sounds like he's using C Lightning, and that's on by default. Yeah, I mean, it could be countless things. Like I said, there's like a lot of pains in doing this stuff, even if you are expending a lot of capital. So I could see a lot of pain points, but ultimately I think it's, with Lightning, right, it takes two to tango, right? Like, as well connected as you may be, let's say, Chaz, on with a Lightning Junkies node, your counterparty still has to be able to meet you in the middle somewhere, have a peer that we both share in our graph that can help facilitate our payment getting there. So it's very well likely that Francis has a really well maintained node, but his users just don't know the nuances of Lightning, and they're just flooding his support ticket system. So it could also be an educational issue.
Right. I could definitely see the support the support ticket one, because I work in support in the crypto industry, quote unquote. And yeah, customers find all the different ways, all the different edge cases, making crazy wild assumptions about your platform. And yeah, so I could definitely understand the support tickets. I imagine that's one reason why Cash App hasn't turned on Lightning yet. They're really trying to make sure the UX is as clear as possible, so they don't have like a million tickets floating in and like DDoSing their support, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, customer experience tickets, at least from what I've seen, like being on the other side of the exchange, like building stuff, like just having a little bit of insight into some of the tickets that get like flown past me, working on different teams. Yeah, it could be a bit nerve-wracking, and a lot of the issues are educational. Like, so when you have this new platform with a brand new paradigm with how payments are actually made, like when you make a Bitcoin transaction, like you don't need connectivity to your users in the same way. You just need to make sure that you could broadcast it to the network, right? And that signed transaction gets picked up by the miners and all the users, and it'll get into a block. But with Lightning, you sort of need your counterparties to have a greater understanding and greater connectivity on the network. So yeah, like all of these efforts need to be complemented with an educational part. So yeah, it's definitely a big challenge.
I find it even more kind of nerve-wracking, as it were, because in that same, or I guess Fiat Jeff quote tweeted Francis and basically agreed with him. And that's because, if Francis, people that know Lightning a little bit less than I might or we do or whatever, okay, maybe there's just things to learn, things to work through, etc. But Fiat Jaff, I think, he has his hands dirty and has had his hands dirty in Lightning for years at this point, probably longer than I have. And when, I was kind of making a joke saying, cool, does that mean I can shut down Lightning Junkies because, Lightning is not going anywhere or whatever? And he said, I think you should rename it to Satoshi Junkies, so I could get away from the niche, and when Lightning is replaced by better payment networks, I'll be better situated. What do you think about that?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, it could very likely be replaced by something better, but who is gonna propose it? Like, we're all ears, and what else really competes with it? You're either going more centralized or you're going to a federated model. If you're going to something like Liquid, or you're dealing with centralized trust in a certain way. If you're dealing with state chains, like I know a lot of people have been messing around with Mercury Wallet, which is a really awesome idea. But Lightning's principles are like pretty much trying to make things trust minimized as possible. Obviously, you have a different relationship with your peers, in making these transactions and setting up these payment channels. But you're really not dependent on any fixed parties to be on this network. And I really think it's going to be hard for someone to come up with a better way. But that being said, nothing's impossible, and human ingenuity is unmatched, and I'm sure Lightning could definitely be supplanted at some point. But what's more likely to happen, at least in the short term, is like people are going to come up with better proposals for and implement better solutions on how we can like manage stuff with Lightning. And we already do have so many of them that just haven't been built yet. Like stuff like L2 is going to be a game changer. And, we haven't even gotten, the PTLC spec done like that. That's going to be huge. And, people are coming up with new ways to rebalance their nodes every day. So like down at, the conf in El Salvador, I don't know which of the two they presented at. Oh, Adopting Bitcoin. The Blockstream guys were talking about a new protocol called PeerSwap. And, I admittedly have to get a little more deep in the weeds there, but it looks really promising. And they've gotten proof of concept working with LND and C Lightning, and seems like it could be quite helpful in helping manage your liquidity. But, like I said, we're coming up with brand new solutions at a regular rate. To think that Lightning is going to be like de facto forever is silly. So, perhaps Jeff is right. But, again, it's a really big problem, and, it's easier said than done.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to let the audience know, it'd be great if anyone had any comments or any questions, if they wanted to join us up here. So we're not just two talking heads bouncing back and forth here. If you want to add some flavor, feel free to do so.
Yeah, sure. And God, just put a request through. We don't bite. If you can't get on stage, if there's a bug or if you're shy, you could always DM either Chaz or I. I'm on the Zeus account today, but you could also shoot a message to Evan Kaludis on Twitter, and we'll read it off and give it to you straight.
Or even ask it on the YouTube stream.
Nice. Yeah, we're multi-platform. We're not going to get centralized in any single choke point. So shoot us a question wherever you could find us. Real quick, Chaz, I wanted to actually, so we were talking about LND 0.14 beta, and there's a couple of other points that were actually a little more interesting to me than even say the AMP stuff, which, don't get me wrong, like AMPs and subscriptions and all that stuff is super exciting, but some of the other updates in this release are like a bit more interesting to me, actually.
Okay, so could I guess that it's maybe the batched channel funding?
Oh man, batch channel funding. Is that in this release?
I believe yes. I'm looking right at it.
So, what is batch channel funding? Okay, let me read it, because that's not one of the ones I even looked into, but that's awesome. Okay. Oh, so we got a new RPC call called batch open channel. Oh man, this is so much more straightforward than doing it. Okay, so I was a little confused here because I knew we could already do the batch channel openings, but it was like a real dog and pony show. Like you had to go through like 5 different steps and be real meticulous like with it. But there's a brand new straightforward RPC for you to use a single transaction to open multiple channels now, and you'll save on fees. So instead of having to pay the fees for every individual channel you open, you just pay it one time. So boom, that's an awesome one. I didn't even know that. Okay, sweet. So we said reusable static AMP invoices, batch channel funding. That is really sweet. I got to play with that. We got a couple of other things in here which are really cool for people trying to deploy L&D at big enterprises, including support for plugging into Postgres, which is my favorite SQL database. That's really cool. They also let you have a fully remote database. So if you're like trying to build a more durable rollout of L&D with redundancies, like perhaps you want to have one single database but multiple instances of L&D connecting to it, like you can do that now. Seems like their etcd support is maturing, because when I tried to put it together, it was just not ready for prime time. It was really slow. So that's coming together. Another thing is this new remote signing functionality that they're building out. This is not related to Lightning Signer, but allows you to use a separate LND instance. So like you could have a wallet one place and the signer somewhere else for a little bit more security. So that's really cool as well for enterprises. They've got better Tor support with these hybrid Tor modes where you can set what actions like you want to be going over Tor, and say Tor is only used for Tor only nodes, and ClearNet could be used for everything else. You get better support. They've got this new macaron-based middleware interceptor. Like that's going to be really crazy, sort of going into, having more granular support. But ultimately, that's going to open up the door for people having like accounts on LND. So like we could have one instance of LND, like we share Chaz, like for example, and perhaps we have a Chaz account and an Evan account, and it's just on the same node, but we're both able to use this one instance. So that's really exciting. That's like an LND hub, so sort of like Blue Wallet custodial mode killer. But I think the most interesting thing to me is the pathfinding improvements. I am looking to do some benchmarks on it, but they're saying that the pathfinding is being done in memory. So, admittedly, you got to have this running on like a node with some RAM on it. You could opt out of it if you're running it just on mobile, but they're saying your pathfinding is supposed to be 10 times faster. And, from my perspective, I was saying that both from like a node operator perspective and like a user perspective, like, usability needs to be tackled. It needs to be addressed. This thing needs to be as smooth as butter, and stuff like that, like really goes a long way. Like if you're suddenly going from having 30 seconds to find a route to make a payment to it working in 3 seconds, like that's unbelievable. So really excited about that, and looking to get some benchmarked in soon. So it just came out yesterday, so perhaps people might not be so bold as to jump to it right away, but on paper, like this release looks absolutely massive. So hats off to the Lightning Labs guys and all the external contributors. I think they had like 40 different contributors working on this release, which is incredible. And hats off to them. L&D is constantly putting out awesome releases with cutting edge functionality, and above all, it's like the most user friendly, and there's a reason why they're leading the charge as far as market share and the implementations go. So awesome release. looking forward to get my hands dirty with some of that pathfinding stuff.
Just to say, I want to go ahead and welcome Satoshi and Ziggy to the stage. Do you guys have a question or any comments so far?
Hey man, thanks for having me. I just had a quick question about, I mean, obviously you guys aren't as excited about the AMP invoices, but I guess I was just curious. It kind of feels, I don't know, maybe it feels too good to be true that it's just going to be compatible and interoperable with offers, LNURL, LN addresses, etc. But like, are there any nuances? Like, I haven't really played with AMP invoices all that much, so are there any gotchas with it, or is it? Do you guys think it's just gonna like, be interoperable from the get go?
So yeah, Lightning a LNURL server is pretty much just saying, okay, spin up an invoice for me, make it for this amount, and send it back to the person requesting it. So that mechanism is pretty straightforward. There's no reason why LN URL servers or Lightning addresses can't leverage either Bolt12 or AMP addresses. So I would not worry about stuff on the LN URL layer. Like they've abstracted stuff away that they're able to take advantage of all of these formats. I'd be more worried about the Bolt12 and AMP interoperability and, Rusty and Lalu and those guys leading the charge there, finding some middle ground and, making sure everything is fully interoperable with LND and C Lightning. I think it's going to be a little hairy for a little bit. I think it's going to take some time to figure out what works best and find out all the gotchas. But, ultimately I'm confident that there'll be some middle ground there. I think there's going to be some different, more contentious issues that come up over the years, but fingers crossed, that stuff is working real smoothly together in the next year.
Cool. Thanks. That's good to hear.
Yeah, no problem. Ziggy, what is up?
Hi. Nice to have a chance to pose a question. So I was wondering whether you thought about this it's HTLCs and PLTCs, because I read that somehow they are not compatible to work together, so that you not easily can change an HTLC channel to an PLTC channel. So what do you think? So in my mind, if we can't get them really work together smoothly, it would be a disaster in my view. Or what are your takes on this?
So yeah, I mean, I don't think you're going to be able to upgrade an HTLC channel to a PTLC channel. I think that's number one people need to accept. Can PTLC go over the same route? So with HTLC channels, that really remains to be seen too. There's a good chance that they won't. But I think while there could be a lot of pain in a transition, I think that if PTLCs have a clear advantage over HTLCs, which it very much seems like it will, I'm saying this all despite the spec not being fully fleshed out. I think there could be a bit annoying in a bit of a transition period, but in due time, if you have all the clients or the implementations saying, okay, we're defaulting to PTLCs, I think for the most part we could have a fairly smooth transition. It's not going to be without its hiccups. It might take a couple of months, but if everything we think is going to come out of this ends up being true, then there's going to be no reason to go and make HTLC channels over a PTLC channel. So that like an inherent upgrade and all the functionality is going to sort of push people over. So Yeah, definitely potential for some pain short term, but I'm really not worried about it too much long term.
Okay. And another question would be, I mean, is it really a problem? Like right now, I have the feeling I'm running a routing node and stuck payments seem to be an issue, or because when you rebalance, you sometimes you have an active HTLC like which hangs there for days or 2 days. So will there ever be a chance to get rid of those stuck payments?
To get rid of them entirely?
Yeah, of the problem specifically, yeah. Stuck payments because you can't do anything because they stuck somewhere else, and yeah, seems like a hard pain point.
Yeah, yeah. As far as things go with HTLCs as they exist today, there's like really not a great fix for that. You really just have to wait for them to expire and then get restored. But over time, the protocol can change. Who knows if we can help alleviate that as we switch over to PTLCs as well. But yeah, like what's your use case? Like you're really just trying to do like a loop out where you're trying to balance your channels by sending like lightning payment out, or vice versa?
Yeah, as mostly rebalancing all the channels automatically. So, and then I'm always wondering, wow, why are so many HTLC stuck? And they prevent
really
from rebalancing though. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you're even unable to do the rebalance
that's it.
because they're stuck with the attempts. Yeah, that could be very frustrating and certainly a pain point. I think that falls under the user experience issues that node operators have, and
But it's
we definitely need to address that.
But is it correct in my understanding of the protocol that when the lock time expires and the HTLC is still active on all nodes on the route, do they have to go on chain then? Or will they? Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think that if you want to redeem them,
like is the
independently of peers, right? And the peers are not unlocking them for you to take back. Then if you really want access to those funds right away, you do need to redeem them on chain. So your script will say, okay, like I'm still the owner of them. No one has an updated script saying that they have the new ownership of it. And ultimately that has to be redeemed on chain.
Okay. It's quite a risk though, but I think you can really manually change the lock times. That's right now a good point in LND, that you can really not go by the default 40, but you can push them up to 150, the delta, so you don't get to this situation because Tor is so unreliable.
Just the worst, really.
So Tor is really unreliable right now, and I'm talking also to big route operators, node operators. They tell me the same. Like sometimes it's so. Today was also a day where the network was so over. What's the word? It was so congested that I had
congested and overwhelmed.
I had half of my channels inactive.
Yeah, I mean, just for some context, as a maintainer of Zeus, we've got functionality in there for people to connect to their nodes, via the REST APIs over Tor network, and Tor is definitely the number one pain point, I would say. That's why I mean half are pretty much support requests that people send us are like pertaining to Tor pretty much, so that's a pain. So as far as people trying to connect to their own nodes remotely, like an interface, like I really recommend looking at different solutions, aim with stuff like zero tier that's built into the REST by Blitz. But that's just sort of a separate issue from having your node connected to the Lightning Gossip network. And a lot of people, they just don't have the, they don't have the option to connect on ClearNet, or they don't want to expose their home IP address or open up the ports on their routers, and they just default to using Tor, and that's a huge problem within itself. And like we were saying at the beginning of the episode, the vast majority of Bitcoins on the Lightning Network are attributed to Tor nodes. It's something like 74%, something like 2,600 Bitcoin. That's insane. So all the devs are pretty much aware of it, and I at least personally have a love-hate relationship with Tor. And, people are going to have to get a little more creative with how they use it, how they interact with it. A lot of that is largely at the implementation level and with how they handle their network connections. And we were talking about it very briefly earlier, but definitely intrigued to see if this new hybrid Tor connectivity mode in LND 0.14 helps with that at all, which is basically saying, okay, we're only going to use Tor on the connections we need to use Tor for. We're going to use ClearNet whenever we can. So hoping that helps out a little bit. But Tor is, I think we're ultimately all going to just have this weird relationship with it where it gives us so much more opportunity and helps users' connectivity in a lot of cases, especially if they're not, running infrastructure on the internet proper. But it also causes countless problems. And, the way it's architected, the way you're dependent on other peers, there's no way for Tor to fix those problems inherently. So, yeah, I mean, it's really rough. And if those things are important to you and you're considering running a dedicated routing node or running services, you honest to God have to consider at the very least having a ClearNet connection there in the mix. It's sort of crazy if you were just depending on Tor entirely.
Yeah, totally agree. But what I was talking to Alex Bosworth, and he said, and he mentioned it in tweets also, that the gossip network inherently doesn't scale. And I was wondering that, I have no experience really with, I know that peer-to-peer networks work in general, like BitTorrent or something like that. So I was interested in your opinions. Is the gossip network really a bottleneck? So especially if you consider how much information is spread out there. And it's getting more and more, I guess.
Absolutely. As the network grows and more nodes come onto the network, and even more importantly, more channels are opened on the network, there are more gossip messages that are relayed to you, and those messages are getting bigger and bigger because they contain more and more information. So it could certainly be a bottleneck, especially if people are dependent on Tor to get this information. I think what we're seeing is a lot of implementations experimenting with the rates at which they fetch that gossip information. I think a lot of them are experimenting and seeing how infrequent they could go and ask for that information and to relay that information. But it's a trade-off, Ziggy. It's a trade-off between having the latest information on the network, and perhaps when you have that outdated information, you're doing route calculation that's inaccurate, which could really lead to more routing failures, versus expending all this time and bandwidth and computation on your node to fetch and store the latest information. So it's like a lot of experimentation and trying to find the sweet spots. I definitely know the guys over at Rust Lightning, LDK, are trying to be a bit more conservative from what I understand in doing that. And, as the network scales up, we're going to have to get more creative, either be more conservative in fetching it or, alternatively, I think we have another potential centralization choke point in the idea of perhaps we have dedicated nodes that are used for routing, where we might go and say, hey, it's a little too arduous for me on my little Raspberry Blitz to, do all the calculation for this route when I'm just, dealing on my little Raspberry Pi. But, I'm willing to trust this third party to help compute the route for me and help get this payment out the door. So, we could definitely see a future with that, but we have to be cautious of the centralization choke point, as I was saying.
Yeah, definitely agree.
But there's also multi-party route computation and stuff like trampoline payments and rendezvous payments that could also help with privacy in the meantime. So, like, perhaps a receiver is also helping with part of the route calculation beyond just giving like their route hints for the network. So, a lot of stuff like that needs to be fleshed out a bit more and experimented with, but I'm at least excited by the prospect by some of that potentially giving us a little more privacy as we're building it out. So let's see what happens. But definitely another thing to be cautious about.
Okay, yeah, thanks for this the exact answers or opinions.
Yeah, no problem. It's quite hectic out there. There's a lot to keep track of, but this is really still a nascent network. We've been around about 3-4 years, but really that's nothing in the grand scheme of things, especially compared to Bitcoin, especially with having like more dynamic mechanisms with how our peers interact. So I think there's just definitely going to be a lot more done on that front, especially as this network grows. And we're talking about just the amount of capital being put on. We really don't expect that to slow down anytime soon. So as the months go on and we get more capacity and we grow, we're going to see some growing pains. And we need our best minds working on some of these issues. Thankfully, we've got some ideas in mind, and as it becomes a bigger issue, I'm sure more resources will be dedicated to it. But it's these are big problems, and not to say that they can't be solved, but they definitely need some more love and attention.
What do you think? Do you have hope in more exchanges adopting a Lightning Network? Because I guess Pierre Rochard will lose his face if Kraken does not adopt Lightning this year. Or what do you think?
Evan.
Well, you might want to ask Pierre what the timeline for that looks like. But I would say in the next year we're definitely going to see major exchanges implement it and get it out the door. From my understanding, Square, Cash App and Kraken are pretty close in terms of how far along they are, and I'm really excited to see those big players get out and support Lightning. Obviously there's a lot of challenges that they face. I'd say a huge part of it is educational, like I said earlier, but it's also a lot of active management of channels and connections. And at the very least, we're seeing a lot of exchanges with less amount of customers diving in, trying stuff out. OKCoin has got it out. They're also just switched their main unit to Sats. That's really encouraging. I'm really just curious to see what some of the other players do. I don't think Coinbase is going to implement it anytime soon. They had a whole post on their blog about layer 2 solutions and not a lick about Lightning. So I don't think they're interested at all. I think Binance is really disincentivized to roll it out the door. They have their own BSC token, which is their centralized shitcoin token that they're really invested in. And I think that Lightning undermines that to a certain extent. I would really love if FTX got into the Lightning game, but they really haven't indicated so much. It looked like their CEO was at one of these El Salvadorian conferences this week, so that could be a sign, perhaps, that they're thinking about it at least. I'm not. I mean, it's at least on everyone's radar with the El Salvador stuff happening this year, so you can take some solace in that. But there's a lot of stuff stacked against it, and I think another one that people are not taking into account is what these exchanges are charging for some of these withdrawal fees, and what they're charging for some of these deposits as well.
Right.
And that's a really big part of the puzzle when some people are charging $10 for a withdrawal. That doesn't really seem. I mean, and this is while the mempool is empty. This is when you have 1 or 2 sats per vbyte being the default for like long periods of time. They're still charging like an arm and a leg. So that's like a really big problem, and you've got people at the top who are not really looking forward to giving their customers a break. So it's also hard to reconcile that, but also understated is the complexity of running these Lightning nodes, managing a node, and also making this new paradigm work with your existing stacks, especially when you don't have the same mechanisms going on, right? Like an exchange, typically for deposits, right? You just have to generate one address for the asset. When you're dealing with any other of these other networks, right? Like you just need to generate one Bitcoin on-chain address, one Ethereum address, one whatever, by and large, right? In 99.99% of cases. Whereas with Lightning, we're talking about Bolt 12 and AMP, but that's brand new. Like I'm sure exchanges could take advantage of that in the future, but right now they need to like build in these new systems that generate new invoices for every time a user wants to make this transaction. They're not doing things in bulk, like you can't have like bulk Lightning transactions. They're all just individual, and just managing the connectivity is huge. You don't have to do that when you're dealing with like a standard blockchain gateway. So, well, there's definitely a lot of challenges, but we're really, got momentum on our side, and people are excited about Lightning. There's not the same sort of crazy investment that like speculators and VCs are putting into stupid things like DeFi and Web3. But there's definitely a lot of excitement about it, especially after El Salvador. Also, helped a bit by the Twitter tipping system and what Strike's doing. So I wouldn't expect everyone to get on board, but I would definitely expect big players to be on board in 2022.
So
absolutely.
Well, you actually reminded me of another bit of news that I forgot about up until now. NYdig acquiring Bottlepay to basically do a backdoor Lightning Network adoption. What do you think about that?
Oh, man. Okay. So first of all, congrats to that team. We've disliked a lot of things they've done as far as KYC, right? But, this is a huge acquisition. Do I think it's worth $300 million? No, definitely not. They really lucked out there. I'm not going to hate on that, but, perhaps NYdig overpaid a little bit. I would say, though, that this is extremely bullish. I think if El Salvador and Twitter tipping didn't catch banking CEOs' eyes, this definitely did, because Ross Stevens is a huge name in the industry. I think NYdig is building a big name for themselves. They're trying to get their name out too. I think they just did a deal with the Houston Rockets as well. That's pretty exciting. And I think the writing is on the wall that, the existing rails that are used for the banking system are antiquated. There's great potential for Lightning to be used, as rails to your customers, but also to a certain extent between actual institutions. And, if you're a banking CEO, you're definitely, having this on your radar in a certain extent. And, this might pave the way for a whole lot more in traditional banking. So let's see what this offering looks like. Let's see what they deliver to the banks. Technically, it's nothing too crazy from a user perspective to get used to. I mean, to be excited for, because it's really just like PayPal or Venmo with Lightning, really. But in the context of traditional banking and changing the paradigm and actually getting banks to like accept and work with Bitcoin, like it's quite massive, I think. So, again, congrats to the Bottlepay guys. Congrats to NYdig for this acquisition. And we're excited to see what comes of it.
Oh, okay. So also, we're kind of, I don't know exactly where we are on the show right now, but do you want to let everyone listening know about any updates to Zeus Wallet? You've been working on that redesign and all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. So it's been quite a while since we put out another alpha release, but we're gearing up soon to do another one. This next release is going to have a couple of graphical upgrades. Working on our new buttons right now. Our biggest change will probably be on the settings page, which has been completely revamped and updated. It feels like a whole brand new app, and I'm really excited for people to poke around with it. That's pretty much wrapped up. I just need to add one more toggle for opting to use mempools rates or not for fetching fees. And then we're just going to focus for a little bit on just making a tighter experience for our C Lightning users. So we feel that the current alphas are doing a really good job for LND users. It's really quite a smooth experience for the most part. But C Lightning users, a couple of things are broken for them. We're going to get that up to speed. Then beyond that, we still need to chop up our send pages. We need to chop up our channel creation pages. Our onboarding, definitely. But we're really hoping that we can get some of these things done in the next couple of months and deliver a really awesome product to everyone on the main app stores, bring everyone into this new redesign beyond just the people who are reckless. It seems like we'll probably punt on some of our more in-depth PSBT signing with external wallets. That's still going to come. We're still really excited about all that stuff, but I think we're going to dedicate a full release to that, just because we've been hacking on this redesign for quite a while, and we want to showcase it and get in front of more people. But beyond that, we've got a whole bunch of more ideas for what we want to do for Zeus. We want to make it easier for normies to use, for people without nodes to use, and we're exploring a lot of that stuff right now. So expect a lot of big updates in 2022. Zeus is out right now in a stable form on both the iOS App Store and on Google Play, as well as F-Droid. If you want to get the alpha, you got to get on iOS Test Flight or check out our GitHub page. And we're always looking for new contributors to help us out. Whether you're a designer, the whole design process is open source through the Bitcoin Design Group. We post our review meetings on there. You could see the designs on Figma. We are always looking for more devs. So if you want to help contribute to it, the code is all open source on GitHub. We use JavaScript, TypeScript, and React on a React Native app, of course. And, if you can't do that, we're always looking for more people to try out the app, give us QA, give us feedback. And, anything you could do to support us from, throwing us a donation. We got a new donation portal with BTC Pay Server and Lightning addresses. If you could star us or fork us on GitHub, that'd be appreciated. You give us a review on either of the app stores, that'd be much appreciated. And, beyond that, just spread the word and try it out for yourself. Connect it to your own node. I think I could say with some degree of confidence that Zeus is the absolute best way to connect your node to your phone. And I'm really proud about not just me, it's been a collective effort. We have 19 plus contributors, a team of designers that are helping with this redesign. I'm really proud of what we've all collectively done together, and it's only going to get better if, more people jump in, take a stab at coding, and, contribute some edits upstream. We'd appreciate it. So check it out.
And just for the newbies, what implementations does this support?
Every major Lightning implementation right now that has an API that you could directly hit on REST. So LND is probably first in line as far as support goes, but we also have great support for C Lightning through C Lightning REST and Spark. If you run Eclair, you can also connect your Eclair node. And if you don't have a node right now, you can use LND Hub, which is the centralized Blue Wallet server, but you could also host your own instance of that through certain node platforms. And, looking forward, 2022, like I said, we should most definitely have a light client built into Zeus. So if you don't have the node at home or in the cloud, you can just run a Lightning instance on Zeus in a standalone instance.
Fantastic. Thank you for letting us know about all that. I think it's good to kind of keep up on Zeus wallet, because is there even an alternative wallet really out there that's has as much dev time on it?
I think a whole lot of time has been put in on Zap, and I think Zap is a great wallet. However, it's not as fully featured. As far as functionality goes, it only supports LND. So Zeus tries to take it to the next level and give users even more control. So nothing against Zap. I really like that project, and I even contributed to it on the desktop side of things. I think that's still a great project, but I think we've really eclipsed them as far as our mobile offering goes. Other than that, I don't really think anything is really comparable. I think on the desktop/web, we've got some other great wallets in RTL and ThunderHub. Those are really awesome, and I use both of them pretty regularly. I think there's also some incredible wallets for people who just want a standalone app. I think stuff like Moon, Breeze, even Phoenix provide really good experiences for regular users, but Zeus is sort of in a league of its own right now. And we're really ambitious with where we want it to go. We think it's gonna, continue to be the favored wallet of a lot of people, and we want to keep making that a better and better experience. It's really just a side project for me. I'm not working on it all the time. I gotta pay the bills different ways right now. But it's going to be a project that we're going to continue to build over the years. We want to get as many open source contributors helping out and making it a better experience. And, we're looking to be a staple in the Lightning space for years to come.
And just to let everyone know, Justifer is not here. He is in El Salvador, but his project is amboss.space. It is a Lightning Network Explorer that has all kinds of cool features that other Lightning Network Explorers do not have, such as communities, the ability to claim a profile, the ability to send key send messages and be on the bulletin board on their website, and all kinds of other cool stuff. So if you want to have a really good Lightning Explorer, amboss.space is the one to check out, I believe.
Number one. I mean, I've had some good experiences with 1ML, but what Justifer and company are doing on Amboss is sort of peerless right now. I think they've sort of taken the lead too, as far as the user experience goes. And I'm really excited about all the different directions they could take this thing. So yeah, check it out. Amboss.space. That's AMBOSS.space. That's the URL. Check it out. It's my favorite Lightning Network Graph Explorer. And yeah, we've been talking a little bit about how we can get it a little integrated into Zeus. And I'm sure that it's going to be pretty nice to see over the next year. So look out for that too.
Fantastic. And finally, the show is also brought to you by Lightning Junkies. You guys ever heard of Lightning Junkies? So I'm not going to do too hard of a pitch right now. I'm just going to say that next Wednesday, we'll actually be dropping a show with Ben Ark. We were talking about LN Bits. I think LN Bits is a very important part of the Lightning Network ecosystem that doesn't get enough visibility, or it doesn't get talked about enough on a lot of the podcast shows. So I thought, Ben Ark deserved a bit of exposure there. Since the episode, he actually did his offline POS project, and we didn't really get to talk about that as much. But yeah, so that's going to be the next show. And then the show after that is going to be Fiat Jaff and Andre talking about Lightning address, and we kind of go really in depth on that. So that one's probably December. But yeah, that's kind of my little spiel right now. But that's pretty much it. I don't feel like selling myself right now.
Cool. No, that was awesome. Looking forward to those episodes, and yeah, that'll be great. LN Bits is a really cool solution for just spinning up a little point of sale solution. It seems like Ben's works have been really trying to make things easier for merchants, and that, I don't know what's called LNPOS or whatever service he's got going right now is like a really awesome way that he's leveraging LN URL for merchants to accept payments even when they don't have web connectivity themselves. So really brilliant idea, great implementation. It's all open source, and yeah, it sounds like you've got some really awesome contributors coming on to podcasts. So really excited for those episodes.
And something that I'm going to mention that's completely random and unrelated to Lightning Junkies, but the guys from Simply Bitcoin, a kind of Bitcoin-focused YouTube show, also had me on yesterday. And so that's going to be releasing sometime today. I don't know exactly when they release their shows, but they said it'd be dropping today. So if you guys like Phil and Nico, then and me possibly, I'm not sure if anyone likes me, but if you do, then be sure to be on the lookout for that Simply Bitcoin episode.
Sweet. Check that out.
Anyway, so I'm kind of, my list on Lightning Network topics is kind of run thin at the moment. Did you have anything else on your side? Did the audience have anything on their side that they would want to bring up or share?
Good question. I think that's pretty much it for me. Other than that, sort of interested in this new synonym company that John Carvalho and the Tether guys are launching. That seems pretty interesting. Sounds like they're going to be doing some Lightning stuff. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled out for what they're doing. So far, they've got a new library called React Native Lightning. We might end up leveraging that in Zeus, sort of poking at it right now.
So could you like let us know what the fuck it is? Because I went to their website and my brain couldn't tell me what the hell was going on. Do you want to help me out, dude?
Yeah, so they're trying to leverage a couple of different technologies. So Tether, of course, that's based on Omni originally, which is like sort of this Bitcoin sort of sidechain. And they are building out a project called OmniBolt, and they're looking to support stuff like stable coins and different assets using Lightning. So that's still got a couple of years to really flesh out, but that seems interesting. They've got this other new format called slash tags, which are sort of like a blockchain independent way of like signing data. So they're building that out. That's going to be built into their Bitcoin wallet. And yeah, they're just looking to support Lightning more. first starting with this React Native library. But yeah, I mean, I really need to get a little more hands-on with the slash tags thing. They have a little demo, that demo wallet you could test out online, but I couldn't get it working the first night. So I suspect it's either something with my browser or I got to figure out. Let me see if I can do it right now real quick. No, I got to figure out. Maybe my Firefox is a little too paranoidly locked down. But yeah, John's had some pretty interesting insights on in the community the last couple of years. And yeah, just want to say congrats to him. And we hope to see them supporting the ecosystem with some more Lightning products. So that's definitely one of the more interesting announcements from the El Salvador conferences. Peer swap that Warren Tagami from Blockstream revealed, and yeah, we'll see what else comes from it. I think they got a couple more days of activities down there, so more Lightning announcements would be very cool.
I'm definitely jelly of everyone down there right now. It sounds like the place to be.
I should have been down there, but now things have just been a little too hectic on my end as of late. But you know, maybe we'll go down some other time and go surfing or something. Oh man. But yeah, it looks like people are having a lot of fun. It's really cool. You know, the first night down there, everyone was just sending us pictures and videos of checking out at McDonald's. It's like, Jesus, enough with the Big Macs already. Let's go get some like pupusas, some steaks, support the locals. And seeing the content of people doing that has been pretty awesome. Obviously, a really long way to go to sell all of the El Salvadorans on Lightning Network and Bitcoin. But, you know, in the cases where it already has, it's really awesome. Some amazing stories coming out of there. So, you know, like we said, while it's not entirely smooth sailing, still a lot of good success stories on an individual basis, I would say. And, you know, we want to see many more of those. So fingers crossed.
So yeah, I think we might be kind of reaching the end of the show here. Does anyone in the audience have anything they'd like to share? Any questions? You know, ask Evan when he's going to implement offers into Zeus. Just kidding. It's coming at some point. But
funny story. We're definitely on it. A little bit waiting on our buddy Suheb at Ride the Lightning to put it out first. But yeah, I mean, we'll probably have support for at least generating invoices. Like I said earlier on the show, I think the issue is like storing those invoices. Like, we'd rather it be done at the implementation level, like C Lightning to manage stuff, so that you don't have to manage the same list on, say, Zeus and Ride the Lightning at the same time. But it'll come. I'm definitely open to putting a lot of this stuff in, even if the specs are going to change over time. Yeah, it's just been really cool messing around with it, at least in the last month. I've got my little C Lightning nodes out in the mix and been messing around with it at least. So it's on my radar, but not really sure exactly when we'll ship it, but we'll see.
So maybe we'll close the show with this, because I think you brought up L2 earlier, and obviously in order to get L2 in, you need to get either BIP 118 or BIP 119 in. And I'm not technical enough to be able to tell you which one makes more sense. Jeremy Rubin has been posting on the Lightning Network the mailing list for a while about, you know, contrasting the two. He's a bit of a weirdo, so I've been having a hard time actually wrangling him for an episode, because I've been like, dude, explain this shit to me. I don't fucking get it. But long story short, though, at this point, I guess I'm still kind of just defaulting to BIP 118 to any prev out. That still seems to be what is most popular out there, because I think Jeremy has done a kind of bad job of getting BIP 119 out there. I think Shinobi likes BIP 118. He's on the list of people like this that Jeremy likes to share for some reason. Yeah, like I wonder if there's going to be a bit more of a controversial back and forth with these two different BIP proposals. Is that a tautology? Is it a proposal? Whatever. Yeah. So, what do you think about that? Do you have enough, of an opinion between the two to be able to say, BIP 118, BIP 119? What do you think?
So when I was analyzing BIP 118 in the past, I was really excited about it. You know, the gains that it would provide to the Lightning Network, you know, looked fantastic. That all being said, I don't know enough about the nuances between it and BIP 119, so I really can't speak intelligently about it. I know that, you know, Jeremy Rubin, definitely a really interesting guy. He's put together some really cool tooling for Bitcoin. But, you know, for now, I would just I'd recommend that everyone just go to the source and try to read up on it. I think he's got it up right here. It looks like he's got a website for this. It's called utxos.org. That's utxos.org. And yeah, he's got a full site selling BIP 119. He's even got a page for alternate designs. Is this contrasting 118 and 119? No, that's for implementing this. But yeah, I mean, that would definitely be interesting. It would be really cool to have more discussion about this out there, more digestible content. And, you know, once the community really sees what's got more support, BIP 118 or BIP 118 versus 119, yeah, I think it's time for the next campaign. You know, we just got our victory in with the activation of Taproot, and, you know, people are still working on getting that implemented into their wallets and services, but it's going to happen sooner than later, I believe. It's going to take a bit longer for us to get all the benefits of that. But screw it. We need to get this stuff in because Lightning Network needs all the benefits it can get, especially if it helps address some of those user experience bans, which I think are, you know, they're out there. We like to talk about them. And I think this would go a really long way in, you know, helping your management of channels and helping your privacy. So let's get her done, and let's get some L2 functionality or L2-like functionality in there. Would love to see it.
I think Hampus, the guy that you know, works on Blixt Wallet and also created Taproot.watch previously, I think he already has an anyprev out.watch, like just waiting to use. So, you know, maybe that'll actually come into play sometime soon. But I'm like, are people just still like in Taproot mode and they're not going to merge from Taproot mode for X period of time, basically?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is like trying to see it through and, you know, making sure we take advantage of it first. But, you know, let's keep this momentum going. Like, it's going to get harder and harder to push some of these updates through over the years, I think. You know, lots of possibility for ossification, but, you know, Lightning Network is going to continue to have more and more users on it as we've gotten a lot of growth on it this year. I don't think that growth is going to slow down. So, you know, we got to be making updates to Bitcoin conservatively, of course, but any update that can help facilitate the growth of this network, you know, needs to seriously be considered and prioritized. So, Yeah, let's try to break some of this stuff down a bit more so that more people can get educated about it. And you know, let's get our campaigns rolling. Let's get the memes rolling.
I definitely want to have some Channel Factory memes. I think we're gonna do them like a couple years early before the shit's even ready, but you know, why not?
It's definitely a lot to digest. I'm still wrapping my head around Channel Factories. But you know, that being said, anything that helps make channel management and you know, operation of nodes easier, it's very much welcome. So let's get her done.
All right, dude. What do you think about that being the end of the show?
Yes, let's do it. This has been a good rip back. I'm really glad to get back at it with you. We missed Justifer, but you know, at least he had a good excuse. And yeah, let's try to start doing these a bit more regularly, and you know, getting more people involved.
I think.
So,
sorry, I was going to say, I think the next time Justifer is back, we're going to have a great conversation about his time in El Salvador.
Oh yeah, I'm dying to hear what he says, what his takeaways are, what some of his experiences were using these things out in the wild, and what he's heard other people's experience be like, whether it be just locals that are spending or, you know, business operators and merchants. So yeah, that'll be a blast. Hopefully we can hear from him soon.
I hope everyone in the audience listening is looking forward to that. But for now, we're going to end the show. It was brought to you by Zeus Wallet and Boss.Space and Lightning Junkies. I am Chaz. We have Evan from Zeus, and we both want to tell you we'll see you on the Lightning Network.
Later, skaters.